Our son's name is Jacob Raymond. And my wife and I had chosen names for a boy, and our first two children were girls. And we both thought Jacob would be a great name for a boy.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us.
The day we announced we were having a baby was on our second daughter's birthday. And my parents came over for like the first time. They're only 12 miles away from us.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, they hadn't been over in like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And my wife's parents came, and they hadn't been over in ages too. And
Are they pretty close to you guys too?
they're about 8 hours away.
Oh, okay.
They're closer to you actually than they are to us. So we were all together for our daughter's birthday, and we announced that we were having a baby. And not even an hour later, I don't remember how long, 5, 10 to 20 minutes, don't remember, got a phone call that my uncle had died from COVID.
Mm.
And we were expecting it, but it was like the highest high followed by the lowest low.
Yeah.
And the anger that comes from that too, where, Jacob's death kind of compounded it, is that my uncle had cancer. So he was compromised, but he did everything necessary to stay safe, to, even, I know a lot of people did the right thing and they still caught it and still couldn't live through it. But in my uncle's case, he caught it at the hospital from somebody he was supposed to share the restroom with, which he never should have. And he caught it from the patient next to him. And we watched him die on the phone, basically. So then to have this, terrible experience, because he was such a close family member, to then have Jacob die was just another.
It's a kick in the teeth.
It made me very numb, like a numbness of. Yeah. What's that phrase? Carry the world on your.
Yeah, carry the world.
Wear your heart on your sleeve or something.
Yeah. There's the wear your heart on your sleeve and carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And
I wish I didn't sometimes, but it's when you have kids, you think, what kind of a world are we making for them? Yeah. We're leaving them, and right now it looks pretty crappy. And so to have these bad things happen, it's easy to feel sorry for yourself. It's easy to, kind of block yourself out from friends, which I haven't had much interaction with my friends for a long time, and that's on me. But maybe that's just the way it is with people when you get older too. It's harder to do those things, but and there's, when you're farming, there's always risks of injury, and that actually happened a couple 2-3 weeks after Jacob died, about 2 weeks, we had gone out to see Becky's family over what would have been his due date out in western Nebraska. And it was nice to get away, to be together. And when we finally got back here, I was out at the farm for an hour when my dad called and had told me that my brother had been attacked by a cow, and he ended up having a whole bunch of ribs broken, like 8 or 9 ribs, and had to go into some serious surgery. And so there was like all of a sudden, like, here's a lot of responsibilities that I had to get my head back into the game pretty quickly.
There wasn't time for you.
No. Nope. And as someone who's lost a child this way, it's a lot easier to ask somebody how your brother's doing after an injury versus how you're doing after your baby dies. So that's something I had to try to figure out. That, like, oh, how's your brother doing? And I started telling people which one, because I had 2 brothers. So it's just you're in you feel very alone, because you just don't, unless you've gone through this before. Like, Becky and I watched the episode where you and your wife were talking about things you may have said before this happened to you that you think, wow, why did we say that or not say this? And I know it's a very hard thing, and everyone takes it differently, reacts differently. But I think you had said, like, sometimes just the best thing is, like, how are you doing? Or, arm around the shoulder. But there's that kind, maybe it's a Midwest thing, maybe it's global, I don't know, but it's just easier not to talk about it, because, I don't want to upset the person.
Yeah. I truly do believe that people feel if I bring it up, it's going to cause issues. And so why bring it up? And it's just easier not to bring it up. And it's like, that's not how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
We are hurting inside. We truly are needing camaraderie or compassion or I don't know how to express it, but we do need someone to take us and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, and I'm here for you, and I'm here with you." But it's hard for people to do that.
There's a stigma around it for sure.
Yeah.
Even today, when we heard a number of stories, very disturbing stories of people who had similar tragedies in our hometown here, that 30, 40 years ago happened, and how much worse it was then, even, of course.
Yeah.
And so we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
So the best thing that I feel like I can do is, we have 3 kids, and when people ask about that, that's what I tell them. And it's not like I'm looking for attention or for sympathy.
No, well, you're not. You are stating what your family is. So.
Mm-hmm. But as far as, like, people reaching out to you or talking to you about it, that's I don't want to feel like I don't want to feel needy.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard not to feel needy. It's a strange place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. As a man and as a father, and I don't want to assume, but you feel an obligation to your wife. You feel an obligation to your family. You feel obligation to your sphere of influence. It would be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when it was absolutely quiet. Everybody was asleep. And I just break down just for myself. It was like there's nobody around me. And I had no clue why I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning besides just having time for myself. And it was the worst. It was the worst feeling to be just completely isolated.
Yeah.
Didn't want to, didn't want to disturb my wife. Just all by myself. I'd go walking every once in a while. And it would just be total alone. And it was terrible.
I haven't had those moments of really like letting, breaking down, but not for a long time. But there's still a emptiness and a loneliness that even your wife can't.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it is. And I try to lose myself in music a lot. Sometimes I've always been a fan of music that some people would say is pretty depressing, but it's always been like a warm blanket for me. So
I'm also an audiophile. I love music. So
I'm a Seattle grunge guy.
Sunday Day Real Estate?
Alice in Chains. Pearl Jam.
Yeah, good old
Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Mother Love Bone.
Yeah.
There's, there are songs that came into my head that were stuck in my head like for days, all day long. And, and that's something that's happened to me for years. I'm a drummer, and so music's always been an important part of me. And so these certain songs that, would trigger events in my past and now are, even more so meaningful. But I also, I'll try to, I don't always listen to depressing music too. So I like to listen to jazz and classical, and I know the music I listen to is the best music out there, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, music is a great conduit to emotions, to understanding. So, yeah.
One of the most important things for me, though, as I'm trying to figure out myself, is also trying to be there as much as I can for Becky, because of the difference that a mother has in her understanding of this that I'll never, begin to understand. But just trying to be a support for her, because she's a clinical therapist, clinical psychologist. So she hears a lot of people and, terrible things that are happening to these people in their lives. And there's a lot of self-care that's necessary in that field. And after a hard, long day at work,
the
last thing she needs is to feel like she has to, give me therapy. But we are still we're on each other's the same page. And, like I said, the parenting of Jacob is far more, I'm just looking at all the things that she has sitting next to me that she used in her interview and books, and our weighted bear that we had brought to us from the hospital.
Yeah, what
same weight as Jacob when he was born. That our daughters put pajamas on him. But, I came with nothing.
Wow.
So, and the only thing I really did was after he died, I don't have a smartphone. I have I have a Facebook account, and that's it. And and I never use it, or very rarely use it. I made a post on there about Jacob, and I put some lyrics from a Pearl Jam song I always liked, "Given the Fly."
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the song, it talks about seeing a strange spot up in the sky, and it's I feel like, oh, it's Jacob. And then the other song was by a band called Neutral Milk Hotel.
I like Neutral Milk Hotel.
So, the aeroplane over the sea song. And those lyrics are, what a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. And when we meet on a cloud, I'll be laughing out loud. I'll be laughing with everyone I see. That's part of it, at least. But I put those two lines together and with a picture of a bird that was on one of them. And Becky had it printed out for me and put it in a frame. And so I have it on my desk in the basement where after Becky goes to bed, I go down into my cave and try to stay afloat.
It's hard to stay afloat sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
As the waves are crashing down.
It's odd for me too, and I mentioned this once that I've done a couple online therapy sessions, and the first one was a couples one, and it was very hard for me to be a part of it because I felt so terrible for the people, everyone else there, that like, not that anyone else's story is, you're not judging stories by
how bad it is.
You don't want to. Yeah. I mean, the end result's the same. Maybe how they get there can be worse, but it just wasn't very easy. And then another one I did was with other dads it was good, but it was just so sad. There's just there's so much sadness, and I don't know if that's the kind of thing for me. Yeah. And I know talking about things help, but the thing that I mentioned during both of these sessions was, as a livestock farmer, and the same this could be said for a doctor or veterinarian, but you see death.
Yeah.
And for people who have never really witnessed death, or at least enough times to, animals die, and we are animals, and unfortunately sometimes things like this happens. And so something that's helped me, I guess, like when it comes down to it, we're all animals, and unfortunately these things happen, and that's helped. I haven't blamed anyone or anything, but it's helped me with trying to understand, like, we actually know what happened. Not, there are not very many people are told, like, why their baby died.
Yeah.
And we were told immediately by my mother-in-law, actually, who delivered our baby, who's a midwife who delivered our two daughters. And what a blessing it was to have her there, to be there with her daughter, with Becky, and with me at our lowest points of our life.
Yeah.
Truly, I mean, I think my mother-in-law and I have a connection now that will last forever, a deeper connection.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for all that she's done.
Sort of going back, we mentioned our religious beliefs and stuff like that, and I was reading a comment on one of the forums, and it's like, how could a God ever allow a child to die? And it's like, God made a perfect world, which then became, and this is just my personal philosophy. God made a perfect world. God made perfect bodies for humans, and when mortality was introduced into humanity, that was then the catalyst for us to return to heaven. If everybody lived perfectly, there would be no purpose for us to return to heaven. And it's like, death, it's sad, it's tragic, it's horrible, be it in war. I've got friends in Ukraine, and it's war, old age, death, car accidents, anything, and even with our sons, it's tragic, but it's part of the process. And could God stop it? Yes, he could, but then it would defeat the purpose of what his creations were for us to come to earth and experience mortality and prove ourselves to be good or bad, and then return and report to God. And it's like, when I read that comment, it was like, how could and it was really condescending, and I deleted it right off the, but it was like, I don't think God views, and this is a complete tangent, but I don't think God views the tragedy of death as an end, but a returning. And just because we can't remember where we came from or truly imagine where we are going, it's the fear that we have. But God knows. Yeah, it's easy to say God knows because God does know. But
and that's all we need to know.
Yeah.
We believe in God. What else is there?
Yeah. But
God knows. We don't know what God's plan is, but we can guess all we want.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is probably is the one I would agree with the most.
Yeah.
We don't know. And so that's where, so many people who are proving that they are bad people in our world make it so hard for good people to
fulfill what are, yeah.
It's just, man.
Yep.
It's like the miracle. Let's look at it this way. Like, okay, my son couldn't make it out of the womb alive, and he still has a great impact on us, a great impact on family, and Becky was able to raise a lot of money for some wonderful organizations that support families who lose children and maybe can't afford a service or anything after that. So Jacob had an impact, a positive impact, and he wasn't even alive outside of the womb. And something that Becky and I talked a lot about was like, every birth is such a miracle in the first place. Like, we to wonder that any of us are.
Yeah.
I mean, science has greatly improved it and is continuing to get better. But when it comes down to it, we're all still miracles. So why, if you are alive in the world, why are you spending your time making everyone else's life miserable? And then some. And so it's an aggravating feeling of those people, who prove themselves to be bad people, like you said.
Yeah. Yes.
I get stuck in my head a lot.
My 7-year-old daughter, we joke about me being a crotchety old man, but
those days are coming for me too.
I always laugh because I'm starting to get gray and stuff, and I'm like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Now I'll actually look like the old man yelling at people. But I'm truly not a cantankerously old, crotchety old man, but I have lost patience with stupidity, and I guess that is why I've become a. I'm just like, there's too many stupid people. And if I had the magic button to get rid of half of the stupid people, that would be great.
Oh.
Or at least send them all to somewhere else. But
yeah, that's where lately I've been listening to too much Rage Against the Machine.
Hey,
I find myself even maybe angrier than usual, but it's that mindset too of like, well, if you don't like something, then do something about it. And that's where I'm so stuck.
Yeah.
Like I have all these opinions and everything, but it's just there's so much cynicism.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get bogged down in your own life. Like I think of the people we've met who were with these foundations, who like what you and your wife are doing, who after a tragedy are healing while helping others. And so I commend you and Winter for that. And
thank you.
People that we've met along the way here who are doing tremendous work to help families after suffering their own tragedies. And there's a good community of people out there.
A man is not made to be alone, but sometimes we are.
Yeah.
But well, now that we've philosophized yourself into immortality, would you like to tell us about your son?
It's hard to I never got to see his eyes.
Yeah.
And there was no autopsy because we knew, the cord was wrapped around him. And dark hair. I think he would have been a good, strong kid. I can picture my grandma talking in her Polish accent. She's been gone a number of years now, but her mom came from Poland as an orphan, and so she would talk in her mom's accent, like strong as an ox, strong as an ox. I can't do an accent, but
yes, she would talk probably like this, as strong as an ox.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And her family is all from eastern Poland, so right on that Ukrainian border in that area.
Yeah.
But I mean, do I remember exactly what his height and weight and all that stuff? No. But I know, like, if he had been born alive that day, he would have been just fine. And that's where there's a lot of. I know Becky has had a lot of thoughts about that. Like, what if I did this or that?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter. You can't. How do you know? Becky was convinced that he looked like our second daughter, Ellie. Same nose. Holding him felt good. Talking to him felt good. With just a terrible hurt underneath it all, of course. But that last goodbye, Becky and I both had time together with him for that 24 hours about, and then we both had our own time before he said goodbye to his body, and that's something I will never forget. Each individual detail of that moment. The sun was coming through the window, and because the day before had been rainy, crappy. It was May 4th. So he's our Star Wars baby. May the 4th be with you. Then there were little things after that you just want to, things that you wouldn't think twice about in any other day of your life, or without this experience.
Yeah.
But the reality of life, like, okay, we have 2 kids that need a parent here, and somebody needed allergy medicine, so I went to the Walgreens nearby, and after making my purchase, the cashier says, "Would you like to donate $1 to help save children?" And I lost it there. But time has helped that, at least. But
Yeah.
we have a little memorial set up for Jacob in our home. We had these really nice bookshelves made for us by a local carpenter. And one of the shelves is dedicated to Jacob, and so we have his ashes up there, and some little figurines that kind of serve as our 2 daughters, and I don't remember what they're called, but they're pretty popular.
Now, where in the house is this shelf?
We call it Cozy Corner. This is a room that we live in, an old farmhouse.
Yeah.
And this would have been a parlor, I believe. We looked in, initially. It's the front of the house.
Yeah.
We don't have any TV, no screens in there, and it's where kids can go play and read and draw and color and bounce around and listen to music. They have their own little CD player, and there's Jacob up on a shelf. And other little things that, at our farm, there's a portion of the farm that was once another farmstead decades ago, that everything's been torn down. But we would find, my dad and my brother and I would find marbles a lot from kids who had lived there.
Yeah.
Who knows how long ago, 50, 60, 80, 90 years ago. And like a ridiculous amount of marbles. What's wrong? How many marbles can one person lose? And
everybody loses their marbles, right?
Somebody lost a lot of marbles, and I'm always picking things off the ground and obsessive compulsive with recycling and finding stuff and collecting, and just ask my poor wife. But I was thinking, if I find a marble, I'm going to say it's a hello from Jacob. And so I'd be walking through this yard if I was moving cattle, or that's the only reason I'd be walking across the yard, moving cattle from one place to another. And it took a little while, but I found one, and the colors don't mean that much to me as far as kids go, but it was a blue marble. And I thought, well, that's pretty much perfect. And I thought, there's my hello from heaven. Like, hey, I'm here. Everything's fine. So that's up on the shelf too.
Do you still collect those marbles as hellos from Jacob?
I haven't found any since.
Ah.
I think maybe I picked them all up because I have dozens of them. So that's little things like that. I look for meaning. When we were kids, my grandpa died a year and 4 months before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was 30 years old at the time and had only been farming, 8 years by himself. And I remember as a kid when we were driving somewhere, or could see a beautiful sunset, out in the horizon, out when when you have a farm, the sunsets can be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And my mom, for whatever reason, would say, like, "Oh, there's Grandpa. He must be making candy in heaven. Pinks and oranges and all kinds of different colors." And so my brothers and I would our imaginations would go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got older, I remember one day asking my mom, like, "Did Grandpa ever make candy?" No, that's something we just said to, maybe to help try to make Dad feel better. And so after, Jacob died, when we started, we'd see a pretty sunset, I would tell the girls, Jacob's eating candy in heaven. So if we see a really pretty sunset, Jacob's enjoying some delicious candy of some kind. So that's little things that I need to remind myself to keep doing, though, too.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get into a routine, which sometimes routines are great, but they can keep you from doing work that's necessary.
Yeah. Now, David, if there's anything else you would like to talk about, or it's been good. It's been good for me to sit and chat about so many things. Our children are always with us, and talking about our children is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But also talking about those little subjects around it is always good. So,
could I pause for a second and go grab two things to show you?
You betcha.
One I just realized, and the other, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay. This is that one.
Hey, there's that blue one.
Yeah, isn't that pretty?
Ah. Your little hello from heaven.
Yes. And there's Jacob's hat. Every baby has a little hat made for them at the hospital.
Yeah.
So we have that up on his shelf. That's up there too.
The May the 4th.
Yeah. Or the shorts, one or the other. There's a candle.
Oh, okay. Now, what's the significance of the candle?
This was shared with us from one of the foundations, Star Legacy Foundation, that we have been a part of.
Okay.
And have been really good to us. So we bring it with us. When my youngest brother got married,
Yeah,
last November, he got married out near Washington, D.C., and so we brought this candle with us and had it there on the table with other family,
mm-hmm.
and, like the grandpas and grandmas who couldn't be there. So that was nice. I was thinking too, when you mentioned, it took me a while to think of this, but as far as parenting your son, along with my collecting comes, one of these days I'll fill them out, but for each of our children, this is Maggie. I got them this United States Mint.
Yeah.
Little birthday coin deal, and so we have, so that someday this will be theirs.
Yeah.
There's Ellie. I thought might not be here with us, but
yeah,
there's Jacob. So we're gonna get his picture in there.
Oh.
So that's his birth year, that's just because he wasn't alive outside the womb doesn't mean he didn't exist.
Yeah. And that's...
So I will celebrate him by, little things like that. Someday, the girls can have his birthday coin.
Yeah.
So,
it's what you said, hearkening back later, the impact that he has had on you, on your family, and on the influence that you have in other people's lives. Even though he was not born alive, he lives on through you and your wife and your girls and those who are associated with you.
sure.
The way I have changed since the passing of my son has affected how I have lived my life. And I hope for the better. I truly do believe for the better. And his life has touched me, and I now have to touch other people's lives through that.
Sure.
And so I hope people know our children mean so much to us. Our living children and our children who have died. They mean the world to us. And it's hard. It's hard to every single day be there. It's hard as a parent, no matter what, because we're human, and sometimes we lose our tempers, and sometimes we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's as a parent, it's nice to know that we're trying our best. So
sometimes I pray to Jacob that I find the courage and strength to make our world a better place for his sisters for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big deal to us. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We will always have a son.
He'll always be with you. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you.